Talk about it with Rusif Huseynov, director of the Tob Chubashov Center think tank. Thank you for joining us from Baku. A constructive meeting is the official line. What are you hearing, first of all?
A historic meeting, during which the Azerbaijani side submitted its plans for reintegration of Karabakh, urged the importance of disarming the Armenian armed units in the region, and agreed to provide or facilitate the provision of fuel and other humanitarian support to the population in Karabakh. However, even without these agreed items, the meeting should have been qualified as a historic one.
A historic meeting that's,
even though
that's going to beget a second one. It's how does Azerbaijan play it, since they're victorious on the battlefield? How do you sit down with the other side? What tone do you use?
Well, this recent meeting is the direct outcome of the military operation, which has or will have long-term implications. This military operation, which some of us in Azerbaijan already call the last battle of the Karabakh conflict, can put an end to the secessionist regime in Karabakh and maybe to the whole conflict, which had lasted over 30 years.
Put an end to it? Will that be easy, though, since there's been, in fact, you say 30 years, but you could go back even further. You could go back 50 years and talk about all those that have been displaced in one direction or the other, both sides accusing each other over so many decades of ethnic cleansing. Will it be possible for ethnic Armenians to live in Nagorno-Karabakh?
Well, there are so many issues accumulated over the past decades of war, traumas, and mutual distrust that you can't address all of them in one installment. This is why we need a series of discussions of this kind, and we believe that the reintegration and the reconciliation of two societies and the eventual peaceful coexistence are possible, because the Armenians and Azerbaijanis are living peacefully in other countries, such as Georgia, our common neighbor, and why not to do the same thing in Karabakh? I am optimistic in this regard, and I really hope the Azerbaijani authorities will do their best to ensure the physical and cultural and political security of the Armenians in Karabakh. And hopefully the Armenians who live in the region, they will also contribute to the eventual peace agenda.
We're looking at images of Armenia's Prime Minister, Nikol Pashinyan, who's grudgingly giving his endorsements to these talks. How is Armenia playing this, in your view?
Well, the conflict in Karabakh has always been the major obstacle or stumbling block between Armenia and Azerbaijan. With the gradual settlement of the Karabakh conflict, I really hope the Republic of Armenia and the Republic of Azerbaijan will be able to move forward with the peace agenda and eventually establish the normalization of their political and diplomatic relations.
All right. Earlier, we spoke with one resident of Nagorno-Karabakh. For now, it's not all quiet. She said that she'd heard gunfire from a distance, and she also described scenes that were quite chaotic after 3 months of a blockade and Russian peacekeepers overrun. Let's take a listen.
We're in the middle of the city now, just came to the downer part, which is a little bit closer to Russian peacekeepers base, but they say that Russian peacekeepers aren't very helpful now because they cannot deal with that quantity, that number of people too.
Rusif Huseynov, what role now for Russia? We know that Azerbaijan's president has issued a public apology to his Russian counterpart after the death on Wednesday of several Russian peacekeepers in circumstances that have yet to be fully elaborated. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a tragic and unfortunate incident. I consider all human casualties on both sides, Armenians and Azerbaijanis, should and could have been avoided if we did not have missed opportunities. For the past 6 or 7 months, there were calls from the Azerbaijani side to have this direct bilateral engagement with the Armenian community of Karabakh. Although those opportunities were missed and I witnessed yet another round of violence, I think it's still not too late to bring peace. As for
what role for those Russian peacekeepers at this point, and what do you know about Wednesday's incident?
Well, according to the Azerbaijani side's reports, they informed the Russian side in advance, before the military campaign was launched. And according to Azerbaijani calculations, the Russians would not be harmed, but this was not avoided. Hopefully, this incident will not harm the Azerbaijani-Russian relations, as well as the Russian involvement in the Karabakh process. This is what many experts in Baku, in Azerbaijan.
Rusif Huseynov, one final question. You mentioned earlier the lack of trust after so many decades of conflict. This process of building that trust, it needs a mediator. Who should that mediator be?
This is a great question. Well, the Azerbaijani side wants these talks to be direct and bilateral, without any third-party involvement. However, since the Russians are on the ground already, I think they will be more active in the Karabakh process. And we have to kind of separate the Karabakh process from the Armenia-Azerbaijan normalization, which already have, to some extent, Western, EU and US involvement. So my understanding is that we have to anticipate more Russian involvement in the Karabakh process.
Rusif Huseynov, thank you so much for joining us from Baku.